Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are setting up my April reading wrap-up. This was a great reading month, but I didn't read as many books as I have in the past couple months. I only managed to read 15 books this month, but you know what? They were great books, and I can't wait to share some of them with you. 5 of them included some of my 23 books to read in 2023, including The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, which I gave 3 stars, and then The Daughters of Izdihar, which I also gave 3 stars to. I also read The Queen's Price. I only gave that 2 stars, and I will talk about it later on in the video, but I gave both Hellbent and Camp Zero 4 stars. Here is just my reading tracker. I am almost to the halfway point of my yearly goal, which is 150. After the 15 books I read this month, my total is now up to 71 books. Next up, we have my physical TBR spread. I use these stickers to mark off each one that I read. This month, I was only able to get to one of my books, and that is The Inheritance of Garina Divina. I really liked it, so I'll talk about it more later on. And this is me just marking off some of the April releases that I now have in my possession. Moving on to one of the funner challenges that I set up for myself each year, and that is my ABC challenge. I just pick a book with the corresponding alphabetical letter, and this month I am using Camp Zero for my C book. I know I read this last month, but I forgot to include it, and that is Gods of Jade and Shadow I'm using for my G book. And then for my Q book, I am adding The Queen's Price to that. And I know I already had a book selected for my Z, but after reading The Daughters of Izdihar, I thought I would include that since it's part of one of my yearly challenges. And I just think the book cover is prettier, so there's that as well. Moving on to my favorite book of the month, which was Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. It was a 4-star read, but it was probably more like a 4.5-star read. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it was a great sequel. And so yeah, that is my favorite book for April. And then for my book club selection, our theme was a book with a name as the title, such as Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Jane Eyre, stuff like that. So we picked Electra as our book this month by Jennifer Saint. She has a new book coming out this month, actually in May, but this is our book club book for April. Moving on to my last reading challenge, which is to read more diverse books in the year of 2023. This month, I was able to reach my goal of reading at least 10 books by AAPI authors. I also read a book by a Latinx Hispanic author and a book by an Indigenous author. I will talk about both of those during my review portion of this video. But the time has arrived to share some more about the books I read this month. I'm only going to share those that are either part of a reading challenge or that I thoroughly enjoyed and gave good ratings to and want to talk about. But I already set up my cover page for this month. It's just, again, scrap paper that I just glued down in a collage layering style. And then I thought I would do a little something different with my stats this month and just align them along the bottom. But the demographics for the month of April, and I actually messed up on my graph, so I have to go back and reprint it after this, but 7 of the books I read were by Caucasian authors. 4 of the books that I read were by AAPI or Middle Eastern authors. 1 book was by a Black or African author. 1 book was by an LGBTQIA author, and then 1 book was by a Latinx Hispanic author, and 1 book was by an Indigenous author. The ratings that I gave books this month, I had no 5-star books, but I did have 6 4-star books, 6 3-star books, and 3 2-star books. For the publishers, I read 2 books by indie authors, and then the other 13 were trade publications. For the genres, no surprise here, but 10 of them were in the fantasy genre, 4 were in the romance, 3 were in the mystery, 2 were in the LGBTQIA, and then 2 were in the YA genre, 1 was in the contemporary, and 1 was sci-fi. For the mood, similar to previous months, I had 9 adventurous, 8 mysterious, 8 emotional, 6 dark, 3 tense, and 2 were reflective. And then for the format, I read 60% of my books this month in audio format, 27% in digital format, and 13% in print format. Moving on to my reviews for this month, starting with The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. The Last Tale of the Flower Bride is a dark and mysterious story that draws the reader into a magical world filled with vibrant characters and stunning imagery. As someone who liked the story more when it was told from Azur's perspective, I found myself slightly disappointed by the inclusion of the bridegroom's point of view. While the bridegroom's perspective did add some interesting insights and information to the story, I found myself less invested in his character. Overall, I would recommend The Last Tale of the Flower Bride to anyone who is looking for a beautifully written and fantastical story. While I personally could have done without the bridegroom's perspective, the story as a whole is still a must-read for fans of Roshani and anyone who loves dark, magical, and immersive stories. I listened to it on audiobook and gave it 3 stars. Next up is my favorite book of April, which was Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second in the series, the sequel to Ninth House, and it came out earlier this year. Hellbent is a fantastic sequel that extended my expectations of the series and left me thoroughly satisfied. If you enjoyed the first book in the series, you're in for a treat, as this novel takes everything that was great about the first installment and amplifies it tenfold. The faster pace of Hellbent is immediately noticeable, and it's clear that Bardugo has upped the stakes for her characters. The story is intense and gripping, making it hard to put down the book once you started. The plot twists and turns with an underlying mystery that keeps you on your toes and eager to uncover the truth. One of the best aspects of the book is the exposure to more of the magical creatures within the world. Bardugo expands upon the already richly detailed world she created in the first book, giving readers a deeper understanding of the magic that exists in this universe and forcing our characters to work together more in order to save Darlington from hell. This was a fun and intense read. The characters became more developed and got their turns in the spotlight. The pacing was near perfect and the story is full of surprises. I can't wait for book 3 because Demon Daddy Darlington is back. I read the Book of the Month hardback version and gave it 4 stars. Next up, we have In a Garden Burning Gold by Rory Power. This is the first in a duology, and the story follows twin siblings Lexos and Rhea, who possess incredible magic and near immortality. The siblings are fiercely protective of their family and will do anything to keep them safe, even if it means tearing themselves apart. While the pace of the book can be slow at times, the character development and world building are expertly crafted. The bond between the twins is particularly well done, and their complex relationship is the driving force of the story. The political intrigue and world building are also highlights of the book, with intricate details and well-realized characters that add depth to the story. I thought this was a thought-provoking and beautifully written novel that will appeal to fans of complex magic systems, intricate familial dynamics, and political intrigue. I listened to it on audiobook and gave it 4 stars. Next up is The Daughters of Izdihar by Hadeer Elsbai. This is one of my 23 books to read in 2023 and is a debut novel. It is a fascinating fantasy novel that is inspired by modern Egyptian history and offers a peek into a different culture within a richly imagined world. The story revolves around 2 young women, Nahal and Georgina, who come from very different backgrounds but share a common goal of fighting for women's rights and using forbidden elemental magic to do so. While the novel offers a thought-provoking commentary on the challenges faced by women in patriarchal societies, some readers, including myself, may become frustrated with Nahal's selfish behavior. As a spoiled aristocrat, used to getting what she wants, Nahal's entitlement and lack of empathy can be grating at times and may detract from the overall enjoyment of the story. But while this was an engaging read that will appeal to fans who are looking for fantasy reads based on non-Western cultures, Nahal's behavior and the primary focus being on the political and social issues rather than the fantasy elements may be a drawback, but I still recommend giving this debut author a chance. I listened to it on audiobook and gave it 3 stars. Up next, we have The Inheritance of Auridia Divina by Zoraida Cordova. This book is a spellbinding and beautifully crafted novel that seamlessly blends together mystery, family drama, and magical elements. If you're someone who enjoys a complex and engaging story with multiple points of view, then this book is definitely worth checking out. The story follows the Montoya family, who are the descendants of a powerful and mysterious matriarch, Auridia Divina. When she unexpectedly summons the family to her home announcing she is dying, she leaves behind a series of clues and secrets that will unravel the family's past and shape their future. The various points of views from a select few of the family members provide a rich and nuanced view of the family dynamic and add to the overall depth of the story. Cordova examines the complex interplay of tradition and modernity, as well as the tensions that can arise between personal desires and familial expectations. The magical elements of the story add an extra layer of intrigue as the characters grapple with the consequences of their power and the legacy of their ancestors. I listened to this on audiobook and gave it 4 stars. Next up is The Queen's Price, another book on my 23 books to read in 2023. This is by Anne Bishop and is the latest installment in the Black Jewel series, and while it may be a welcome addition for some fans, others like myself may find themselves growing a bit tired of the characters and their petty dramas. The story focuses a lot on the teenage children of the main characters, and while their struggles may be relatable to some readers, others may find them to be a bit trivial and uninteresting, which only gets exacerbated by the knowledge that they're already centuries old but still considered kids. Furthermore, the lack of tangible conflict and tension within the story left me feeling underwhelmed. I was especially underwhelmed by the so-called villains in this installment and knew that I was in for a lackluster ride when the first conflict of the story was a cursed window that yelled at you. While the world building and magical system is still rich and detailed, the story seems to lack the same level of stakes and danger that characterized earlier installments of the series. Overall, The Queen's Price may still hold appeal for diehard fans of the Black Jewel series, but for those who are growing tired of the characters and their drama, it may be time to move on. I read this through my library and gave it 2 stars. Finishing up my last 2 reads of the month, I have Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. This is yet another 23 books to read in 2023 of mine, and this book was an interesting and thought-provoking novel that combines an intriguing premise with an emotionally resonant story. The book follows Rose, a young Korean-American woman who agrees to spy on the architect of Camp Zero in exchange for housing for herself and her mother, who has been displaced by climate change. Along the way, she meets Grant, a college professor who is also seeking refuge at the camp, and the two of them become entangled in a dark and disturbing mystery. While what sets Camp Zero apart is its ability to take a complex and urgent issue like climate change and weave it into a compelling and engaging narrative, at times Camp Zero can be heartbreaking as the characters face difficult choices and painful truths. But ultimately, the book is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the ways in which people can come together to confront even the most daunting challenges. If you're looking for a novel that tackles important issues with heart and insight, then Camp Zero is definitely worth checking out. I listened to this on audiobook and gave it 4 stars. Lastly, we have Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. This is a young adult novel that immerses the reader in the rich culture and traditions of the Ojibwe tribe. The book follows the story of Donis Fontaine, a biracial, unenrolled tribal member who has never quite felt like she fits in with either her hometown or the nearby Ojibwe reservation. Then tragedy strikes. While the detailed and intricate focus on the culture and traditions of the Ojibwe tribe is undoubtedly a highlight of the novel, some readers may find the investigation and romance subplots a bit underwhelming. The 18-year-old protagonist may also come across as immature to some readers. Furthermore, with an oversaturation of additional storylines, the book may feel like it's trying to do too much at times. That being said, the depth and authenticity of the cultural elements in the novel are truly exceptional. Boulley's writing is both evocative and insightful, with vivid descriptions that transport the reader to the heart of the Ojibwe community. The author masterfully explores issues related to identity, belonging, and the importance of cultural heritage. This book may not be for everyone. Readers who are interested in learning more about Indigenous cultures and traditions will undoubtedly find much to appreciate here. The book is an important contribution to the representation of Indigenous voices in literature and is recommended for anyone who is looking for a deep and nuanced exploration of the complexities of cultural identity. I listened to this on audiobook and gave it 3 stars. This is my April 2023 reading wrap-up. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you want to see all of the books that I read in April and their reviews, be sure to follow me on Goodreads. And if you want to see more upcoming videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and to show your support, hit that like button as well. But until next time, happy reading.